Hi Vlogmas friends, I'm back again for day 22. It's mid-afternoon and all I can say is I could do with a nap. This morning I decided to accompany Mr. Stitches on his appointment to the hospital to have a CT scan, and all I can say is it really brought home the reality of the whole thing. I've been in this stage of half believing, half not believing what's going on, but watching the nurse try and get an IV into his arms was, ugh, I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch the needle going in. I can't watch it on TV when people even pretend to put needles in people's arms, let alone the real thing. Yeah, he said by the time she got it in the third time, and he said that one really hurt. So while he was actually going through the scanning process, I was sitting out in the hallway at the cancer center with my knitting. I got a few compliments on my knitting, and even one on my cardigan that I was wearing today as well. It seemed very nice down there. I don't think I've ever been in there before. It's a right maze though. You go in and there's a reception's right there, and you go into a little waiting area, and then you go into a room, and then he gets taken off, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll just go to the washroom, and then I'll go back to that little waiting area to wait until he's finished. Well, I went to the washroom, and when I came out of the washroom, I got all turned around, and it was quite the maze. I couldn't figure out where I was or where I had to go back to. So I ended up making it back to sort of the reception area and found a couch to sit on to do my knitting. So the one little silver lining is that I did actually get a bit of progress done on the cowl. Had my knitting bag with me. Sometimes when I'm at home, I just have the knitting on the coffee table or on the couch next to me. I don't put it in a bag. But you know what? It kind of adds to the enjoyment, doesn't it, to have it in a pretty bag as well. So I'm at the point where I've done my 16 rounds of ribbing, and I've done my first cable cross, and a couple more rounds beyond that as well. So the cowl will be almost a direct match to the beanie, just the ribbing is a bit looser because I wanted more stretch and more room to move in it. Yes, when you're knitting in public, people like to talk to you about their knitting too, and one of the volunteers was talking about the sweater she's knitting right now with really skinny yarn and how it's taking forever, and how she doesn't even think she's going to want to wear the sweater when it's done. How often does that happen? Have second thoughts about things when you're halfway through, not even halfway through sometimes, and yet we still go ahead and just make them anyway, or put them away and ignore them sometimes. So yeah, I mean, this morning was kind of tough. Obviously it was tougher for him than me because I'm just the observer, but yeah, it sort of reminded me of 2012 when I was living in Canada, but my dad was sick. He had lung cancer, and we knew he was sick, and so I went over to visit my family for 7 weeks. I wasn't working at the time. It was before I got the job at the fabric store, which was my first job after having kids once we arrived here. And so I had the time and the funds, so I went over and I stayed with my parents for 7 weeks. And then while I was there, Dad was sent to Southampton in England for radiation treatment. And we all knew, I think, that he was too far gone for it to do any good, but he accepted it anyway. I think at this point he had already pretty much given up and decided this was going to kill him anyway. But of course I went to Southampton. We shared a hotel room. We went to the hospital every day so he could get zapped. And yeah, so I feel like it's sort of going through something similar now. So it's been a dark and rainy day today. after the hospital, we went to get a cup of tea, and we needed to put some money in the parking meter. And for some reason, Mr. Stitch's phone app wouldn't work. Something to do with a postcode not being correct, because it's his office phone. And it needed to have the correct head office postcode in it or something. Anyway, it didn't work. And I got out the car to put some money in the meter, good old-fashioned cash. And there was these two guys who were trying to get their credit card to work for the parking. And it kept refusing them and refusing them. I mean, I'm standing there, no coat. I had a short-sleeve t-shirt with this cardigan on top, and the wind is whistling right through all the holes in my cardigan, and it's raining. And I'm like, oh, come on, people, hurry up. By the time we got into the tea shop, I was frozen. So I never really did warm up much. So once I got home, I put a thermal top on and a turtleneck on, and then the cardigan back on, and an extra pair of socks, and finally felt warm. So yeah, that's where we are so far for today. Got some knitting done. I keep thinking I need to come up with a new sewing project, because now that I've really done all my Christmas sewing that I'm going to do, I'd like to come up with something fun to sew next. I mean, I don't want to force it. I don't want to just do it for the sake of it, but I think I need to come up with an idea. I was watching Kate at the last Homely House for her patrons on Patreon. She's doing an advent every day where she's been making a red and green quilt with a whole bunch of different quilt blocks. And she has got to the point where today she's been hand quilting it. And again, she said, get out of your head and into your hands. And I just feel like I'm always quoting her. I'm always saying that. Because that day that my husband got the call and I was doing the housework, just the fact that I was moving and doing physical stuff really helped me not to just sit and stew on what was going on. And so making things is so therapeutic. And I just don't know what people do if they don't have something to do with their hands. You know, there's only so much time you can spend on your phone scrolling Instagram reels or playing word games, you know? So the knitting, the crocheting, the sewing, it's all so important. I think everybody should have some sort of making hobby, some artistic or creative thing to do. It really is so important for your mental health. So this is another funny thing that happened this afternoon. I had made this meal plan. When we got back from Victoria on the 9th, on the 10th, I made a lovely big 2-week meal plan for what I was going to make for dinners every day, all the way up until Christmas Day. And some of the ingredients I didn't have straight away, but I was like, oh, there's plenty of time. I can always shop for them later on. So today, I was going to make this loaf that required nutritional yeast. And I have maybe a tablespoon of it left in the house. I just got up, I looked in the cupboard, I started to think about what ingredients I was going to need to make this loaf ready for the sandwiches later on. Didn't have the ingredients today. One of my kids is going out to do some shopping this afternoon, but by the time he comes back, it'll be too late to make it because it takes an hour and a half to bake, and then I have to do the recipe. So it's going to be another day. And then the one I was going to do tomorrow, I can probably still do tomorrow because it needs jackfruit. I was going to do barbecued jackfruit sandwiches with coleslaw again, because that goes down well. And I have no jackfruit. And even, I mean, it's quick. If he picks them up today, we could probably have that. But what I've decided to do, I have some soy curls in the fridge, in the cupboard. I haven't used soy curls very often, so I'm going to go and look at the manufacturer's website to see if there's any good recipes that are quick and easy, and do that for tonight instead. Because I feel like I don't have a lot of brain space for anything too challenging. We've had a lot of good messages from friends and family who are thinking of us right now and, you know, offering help, but really, there's nothing we need really, apart from, you know, a bit of emotional support. And that's fine, because it's just a case of doing what needs to be done every day. We have a family, immediate family right here, and I'm trying to let the kids know that, you know, don't sit in your bedroom and stress about things. Come out of there and talk, because I don't want them dealing with their stress in an unhealthy way. I've got a cheeky phone. It likes to start recording when I'm not ready. I was just lining it up and making sure you weren't too wonky. And it starts. It's not like I even said anything. Sometimes I think it'll start because I say a certain word. This time it just did it. And then I realized I wasn't ready because I didn't have a mic on, so I had to turn it off anyway. Okay, I'm down in the sewing room because sitting on the couch was making me very, very antsy. I looked through a bunch of those quilting magazines that my neighbor had given me the other day. They're really old. They're from about 2006, 2007. Definitely not my style or the sort of things I like. So I'm going to be passing those on. Someone will enjoy them. Maybe I should take them down to the cancer centre. I don't know if they take donations of magazines. Used to be that there were magazines in every doctor's surgery or dentist surgery or anything, but with COVID, they sort of took those away, didn't they? I can always ask. So when I came down here and I admired how tidy it was, which is, you know, not always that way, and I just looked at my yarn arrangement that I did the other day, and I was like, that looks really pretty. Aesthetically pleasing, I think I'd call it, and it was very satisfying. And I was thinking I could use a sewing project, and then I wondered maybe a hand sewing project might be better than a machine sewing project, because I've just been browsing cross-stitch kits at, let's see, I looked at a whole bunch of places. I looked on Wool Warehouse and Joann's Fabrics and Mary Maxim and a couple of other Canadian ones which I'd never heard of before. And cross-stitch kits are expensive. I realise it's because there's a lot of work goes into them. You've got the design, you've got the packaging, you've got the cloth, you've got the threads. Someone has to prepare the exact right amount of thread, put the needle in there, etc., etc. And I might yet buy one of them because I saw a really nice one at Wool Warehouse that was in the shape of a tree, but it was made up of lots of little things like butterflies and flowers. And it was lovely, but once you do the exchange rate to Canadian dollars, it was a lot. I know it would be a lot of hours of enjoyment though. So at some point I'll probably hit the buy now button on that. But for now, I thought, how about I do a bit of cross stitch with some Aida cloth I have sitting around. I had a piece of it in my fabric stash. And also I had this old colouring book, which I've already started cutting up for, I think, making journals. And it had a seahorse in it. So what I did is I'd already coloured the seahorse, not very well. And I took a black Sharpie and I outlined the main parts of it. And then I put the Aida cloth over the top of it. And I used a friction pen, which will disappear with ironing if I don't cover it up with thread. So that's fine. And I've got the outline now on my cloth. So I thought maybe I would just use my sizable collection of stranded cross-stitch thread and dive in. No pun intended. Not sure where I'll start or what colours I'll use, but I've got a lot of colours there. And I think that would be fun. And it might be a little simpler than trying to follow a kit where you've got specific colours you have to use in a specific place and you have to keep referring to the chart. Whereas this is going to be more a la carte, as it were. So I think I might do that. I will also have a little potter around my sewing room tonight, just because it makes me feel happy, and see if there's anything else. I know I had an idea for something I needed to want. I know what it was. I did have an idea for something I wanted to make, and that was a mitt for the ice scraper for my car windshield. I've seen them before, I think, where people have knitted them or crocheted them. No reason why you couldn't sew one out of fleece. My ice scraper for my car is a massive thing. It's like 2 feet long, has a brush on one end and the scraper on the other. And it would be kind of fun to work out how to attach a fleece mitt to that. So if ever I'm out and about and I don't have gloves on, I can just grab the rod and scrape away without freezing my hands. I'll have to think about that one. I've also been watching, I think I mentioned that before, that Joanne has a couple of really nice sling bag tutorials on her YouTube channel. I should link to her. I don't think when I mentioned her yesterday that I linked to her. But she had one that had a sort of expandable pocket on the front with the metal snap, which is why I bought some. And a nice interior section with an elasticated top pocket and I think a zipper pocket. And it was hard to imagine the size. I'm going to have to go look at the tutorial again and see what the size was. It seemed kind of small, but sometimes I think a smaller bag for every day is probably better. Otherwise you end up just overloading it and then dragging around tons of stuff you don't need to. But today there was another video she put out and it was for a different kind of sling bag. Well, very similar shape, but 2 styles, and one was, I think, just a slip pocket on the front, but with a metal snap, which was free, and the other one had 2 zippers on the front, and it was a premium pattern, so presumably you have to pay for it, and I don't see why I would pay for the one with the 2 zippers on when I like one of the other 2. I'd be quite happy with either of the other 2. So I think that fabric that my friend gave me the other day, I'll go grab it in case you weren't here then. So how fun would it be to have a sling bag made out of denim? And when my friend brought round my gift the other day, when we had our fun afternoon with friends, she brought me a whole bunch of denim scraps too. So I think I'm perfectly set up. A denim sling bag with this as the front pocket. How fun would that be? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I think it's going to have to become a sling bag. And actually, because it would only be the front pocket as a feature fabric, I'd probably only use about 1/4 of it, maybe half if I had to fussy cut it to line it up the way I wanted it to. This on a denim sling bag. I need to write these things down before they go out of my head. Hold on a minute. Oh, I'm going to have to take my notebook out from under the tripod. You might go a bit wonky while I take it out. Okay, I'm back. Right. So, next job. Google for ice scraper mitts in fleece, in case there are any tutorials out there. Not that it's probably going to be too hard, it'll probably just be a rectangle. But I think I might pop out to my car and grab my ice scraper / brush and see if there's a way I can come up with adding a mitt to it. And you know what? If I made myself one, I bet you the other drivers in this family would like one too. So this monster is my ice scraper. As you can see, it has the brush on one end, it has the scraper on the other, and right here you can loosen it and you can extend it even further. So having a fixed mitt on it would just be a pain, because you'd be having to like slide it to one end or the other when you were using it. So here's my idea: to make a mitt that is not directly attached to it necessarily, or is at least maybe just attached with a long piece of elastic so that it doesn't get lost when you throw it in your car. I have this really lovely feeling fleece. Where are we? Here we are. I can't remember what this is called. It's probably called baby lamb or something. And I got it for free. I think it came in the boxes of stuff from my friend, from the lady who passed away. And so I've done this sort of outline of my hand with lots of room to spare. Are you seeing that? Here we go. So it's way bigger than my hand, and I'm still going to add extra for seam allowances because this is bulky fabric. So I'm going to cut 2 of those, sew them together, see if they're any good. Maybe add about 1/2 inch. My husband thinks that if I give them to the kids, they won't use them. But once I've made one, I can always ask. We haven't bought any physical gifts for the boys for Christmas. Not sure how fast going for the crook of the thumb here, but once I've sewn it, I can always trim it into the corner a bit. Want something that's got a bit of sturdiness to it. Okay, I'm really pumped now because this worked out brilliantly. Here's the mitt. Here's the elastic that I sewed into the seam. It just ties on to my ice scraper and boom. So I can use it either this way with the brush end, or I can use it with the scraper end. It's not restricting my movements in any way and keeps my hand warm, keeps the ice and snow off. And when I showed my oldest son, he's like, yeah, I'd love one. And then my youngest son said, yeah, I'd love one. My husband is still reserving his judgment. So I'm going to make 2 more right now. 3 mitts made. The elastic on mine is nicer than the others. It's black and it's a bit nicer looking. This is just really basic knit or braid elastic, white, unexciting, but hey, those were really, really quick and easy to make.